I would say every university really needs entrepreneurship at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have the lean design thinking process. You have this problem solution fit, trial and error. You start again, starting up. This leading by example is not something that just should happen in Peru, but it should happen globally. It's all about, hey, how can we create the individual path that Jamie's not coming back in 2010 and asking, hey, where are my sparring partners? Where are my comrades to start their own company?
Hola a todos y bienvenidos a un nuevo episodio de Innovación sin barreras. Soy su conductor Jaime Sotomayor y hoy día tenemos un episodio súper interesante. Viene directamente desde Suiza Max Bieri. Él es el Managing Director de Start Fellowship, un programa que es parte de Start Global. De hecho, Start Global tiene un montón de iniciativas. Vamos a hablar un poco de cada una de ellas en este episodio, pero enfocaremos la atención en el Start Fellowship, un programa creado para alumnos universitarios para llevarlos a Suiza a que aprendan a cómo hacer startups. Pero lo más interesante de este programa es que también es dirigido por alumnos que están aún en la universidad. Entonces, de alumnos para alumnos. Esta conversación con Max la tuvimos que hacer en inglés, ya que él no domina el español, pero se preocupen, va a ser súper interesante. Es más, hasta yo me fui con un regalito suizo. Bueno, vamos ahora con Max. Espero que disfruten de este episodio. Hey Max, how you doing? Thanks for dropping by at Innovación sin barreras. How you doing?
Really good, really good. Thanks for the invitation, James. Grüezi miteinander, we would say in Switzerland. It's a Swiss-German accent.
How do you say it again? Sorry?
Grüezi miteinander. It's Grüezi.
Grüezi.
Grüezi. Miteinander means like hi together. So yeah, really happy to be here in Lima and talk with you here the first time physically, I think, in your office. Yeah.
Yes, this is the first time we do like this sort of setup. No more human intervention, just through iPhones and hope everything works. And as you can hear, we're doing this in English. Not German, you know, maybe that would have been very nice, but my German right now is not as good as it should. And Spanish is not something we can both speak. So English is good. English is perfect. And we want to talk about what you're working on and how this helps entrepreneurs from Latin America. But for now, I want the audience to know more about yourself. So tell us a little bit about your story. What things did you start doing and what brought you to doing Start Global?
Sure. Thanks for that. So, hi guys, I'm Max. I'm 21. I'm a Swiss guy, as you can hear that. I'm just a student, so I'm studying 5th semester International Affairs at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. And besides that, I got in the year of 2020 my high school graduation. I got into the Swiss startup ecosystem. So it was first a pitch deck, and today it's Swiss umbrella organization, including more than 800 startups at the moment, and I was their first employee. So that means I was scaling that for 1.5 years. I went to Swiss Army in my gap year to run from the creative scene to a really dry but as well hierarchy way of doing things. But this brought me to the scope of being a co-founder after that. So we launched in November 2021 our own edtech. So it's edtech startups focusing on people between 14 to 19 years old, high school students, and we brought it to Swiss #1 platform for high school students. Besides that, then I joined University of St. Gallen in 2021. Besides that, studied now for 2 years, and now since 1.5 years, I'm part of Start Fellowship, which is one of the sub-projects of Start Global, focusing as an incubator, accelerator on Latin America. Besides that, I took over first head of partnerships, meaning from scratch a whole partnership network of 150 partners, including people such as Rockstart, for example, but as well Pigma. And besides that, now took over since 3 months as a managing director. And that's where I'm here today, a Swiss guy that strives for entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. And it's now like it really makes it more tangible when you guys say it's students, you know, running a program for students. And it didn't really cross my mind that you were still studying, you know? So awesome. This is great. How can you do both?
I mean, it's a little bit like the passion at the end of the day,
Uh-huh.
and I would say every university really needs entrepreneurship at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Why? Because you have the lean design thinking process, you have this problem solution fit, trial and error. You start again, starting up.
Yeah.
I think this is the startup life cycle. That's a matter of life at the end of the day, right? So yeah, I mean, including that into a normal business administration package, for example, it's the best version that you can get. But I thought, hey, I'm really interested in politics, economics, but as well in the whole financials. So why not doing that as well in combination as a co-founder and test it, validate it in a practical world, right? So Start Global is like really, or at our university ecosystem, it's quite well known to go to student clubs. So we have over 130 students. Over 130 student clubs, including in our ecosystem, and around about 9.6k students just from bachelor, master, but as well PhD level. So meaning that we have a multi-international scope to work in. So you can go to play football, soccer, you can go for bike rides, but you can also do entrepreneurship. At the end of the day, Start Global is well known since a few years back with the Start Summit. I will talk about that later. Yeah. But it was like as well where we as a university were able to see, hey, entrepreneurship is happening. We have over 190 spin-offs from our university in the past 20 years. So entrepreneurship is somewhere, but it was nowhere before Start Global even started. And with that said, it was also a matter of fact that I want to be an entrepreneur at some certain point. My dad was an entrepreneur, sold his company in the software industry in 2020, and since then I was a little bit searching for my role model. So that's why I joined the Swiss Startup Association, for example. And answering your question, I think at the end of the day, it's really being organized, being structured, but as well reflect on your work that you've been doing, right? So I think mentorship is key here, coaching is key, but as well having the right tools. So use AI now to structure your day, for example. Use as well efficient tools such as Superhuman, for example, for inboxes, where I save more than 2.5 hours a day to be more efficient, right?
Is it that good, Superhuman, the app?
Yeah, I love it, really.
Because I use Spark. Spark
Yeah.
AI, and I don't know if it's worth that extra to use Superhuman.
I mean, it depends a little bit in that sense, since Start Global includes more than 750 students working in all over the globe. For us, we also get a discount at some certain point, right? So it's a little bit
helps a lot.
I mean, a little bit the trade-off of that. But yeah, I mean, I'm using it since 7 months, and I'm really, really happy with it. But super happy to also try Spark AI at some certain point. But that's my answer. Yeah,
that's amazing. It's huge. Like and it's all organized by students.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this year we had our first hiring. That was a chairman who was a little bit like as well this interface management position between board and as well Start Global management team. But maybe touching a little bit on the history, and I think we can begin with that. So Start Global started in 1996, and it was on first sight just a little event with 50 entrepreneurs. So 50 people in 1996. There was no tech. There was nothing at this moment in Switzerland. Besides, there was Zurich, and we are 1 hour away by train in St. Gallen. So Zurich, we all know ETH. Zurich is like the MIT of Europe. It's one of the best tech universities worldwide, right? And then the business school of St. Gallen was quite well known to bring the people to KPMG, to PwC, and so on, right? And then we wanted to include that. So that's why we launched Start Global. And our co-founders, Bettina Hein or Florian Schweitzer, both are well known, not only in the investor side, but as well in the startup side in the US, in Latin America, but as well in Europe. And they are now 25 years older and now in our board. So what has been like the journey here? So we started with this 50 people side event that grew and grew over the past years until today to Europe's biggest student-run startup conference with over 6,000 participants. We bring there Sequoia Capital. We bring there as well top unicorn founders in Switzerland, including Valentin Stalf and 26. Maybe WeFox, Julian Teike. So a lot of German speaking and based people, but all studied at HSG, so at our university. So it's also giving back. And then we started in 2016 as well to recognize, hey, we have a lot of business talent, but no tech talent. So that's where the Start Hackathon, the Start Hack, was taking place the first year. It was organized until today with 550 hackers, 80 nationalities, including this year, so quite global as well. And under this aspect of Start Global, we launched then in 2020 Start Fellowship as our third product, if you want so, where we wanted to incubate and accelerate startups for more than 3 days in Switzerland, right? So including that, we had the first test batch of 7 months with Romania and Colombia. So now the people may ask, maybe Romania and Colombia doesn't make sense, right?
Why did you choose that specifically?
So why and what was the choice behind that is quite simple. So one of the co-founders, Florian Schweitzer, he's well part of Fondation Now, which is a Swiss-based foundation with a global perspective to promote entrepreneurship, foster entrepreneurial spirit and as well talents in low middle income countries, right? They had a focus on Romania and Colombia. So we said, hey, we validate that. So it was a problem that we saw and we wanted to have a solution for it. And we validated that. You know, the lean design thinking process, it was also a startup at some certain point, right? And then after 7 months, we had one success story coming out of it. I mean, several of them, but one that was return on investment, if you want. So it was Matthias Bolivar. It's a hospitality startup, so-called Conquer. And the unique story about that was that one of the Start Global teams during this time, he was joining him as a co-founder at the end. So he had a Swiss and Colombian startup. At the end of the day, they attended twice in Shark Tank in Colombia, for example, and they raised this pre-seed round of 250K USD. Meaning that we talked again with Fondation Baudin and we structured then a 5-year contract where they support us now with a 7-figure annually invested budget into Start Fellowship. Meaning we have now 2 budget pots, if you want so, Start Summit X Hack and Start Fellowship on the financial side. But on the startup side, we are all together. Meaning that Start Fellowship is now the spin-off since 3 years, supporting over 88 entrepreneurs, 55 startups from 7 Latin American countries, including as well Peru. But yeah, that's basic story what is happening until now. And I think I can talk later about what is the scope maybe for the next 5 years.
What I want to understand is so where does the funding come for all the initiative of Start Global and all the different things that are running at this point, and why do it with the whole world? Why not focus just on Swiss entrepreneurs?
I mean, there are 2 options at the end of the day. Really, you want to go global in that sense, start global, or you stay in Switzerland, right? So touching on the first question for funding, so it's an event. So we are annually organized and we also think annually with Start Summit Exact, meaning we have not a really consistent way of working, I would say, if you compare it to a scale-up, if you compare it to normal SMEs, etc. Because 80% of our teams leave after 1 year. They are just students. Imagine I'm also just a bachelor student at some certain point. I need to finish my degree. I should do a proper job, what my parents are telling me. So anyway, touching on this one, the Start Summit X Hack is financed by sponsors, by partners, individuals at the end of the day. So we have 3 different pots. The first one is the ticket sale pot. We make there around 20 to 30% of the whole budget. Then the whole partnership exposure, meaning booths, meaning side events, meaning speaker slots, etc. We do not pay any speakers. So we had this year over 180 speakers, including, as said, a lot of unicorn founders as well, partners of Sequoia. So we know how to have people on board. But that's just due to a strong Start Global brand. And then you have this third pot that's University of St. Gallen. So mostly operational costs, if you want so, like office space, but as well the whole event side is also sponsored to some extent by the university. So we are just a student club supported by strategic partners of the University of St. Gallen. And then the second one is Start Fellowship. So the foundation of Bodnar is coming in. They just support Start Fellowship. But as well here, operational costs for Start Summit X Hack, for example, are going away to Start Global. But these are just little overhead cost of this budget I mentioned before. And the third one is University of St. Gallen. So FT ranked, we are the top 5 in Europe. I mean, the Latin Americans love to call it Harvard of Europe. I'm not sure about this one, but I think we are doing at some certain point as well a good job. But as well here, the fourth partner B2 Venture, which is like a deep tech investment fund existing now since 22 years. Co-founded by our co-founders, and as well here now investments into DeepL, for example, turned 3 months ago into a unicorn translation tool with AI connected. So it's quite with the strategic partners and all of the partners coming to the summit. So we had this year roughly a budget of around a lower seven-figure scale, meaning that up to a mid will be scaled now, but including 250 partners, including 6,000 participants. So you can guess now the numbers a little bit from a ticket sale, 120 USD for two days above. I'm touching then a little bit on the Swiss entrepreneur side, and that's quite how should I say, I'm a Swiss guy and I love Switzerland. So touching on that, we launched in 2018 and 2019 a start incubator, which is now start fellowship if you want so, and we saw that there was a lack of Swiss entrepreneurs. There's overall a lack of European initiatives to be the Y Combinator of Europe. Now we had EVOR, which is a German-based accelerator, co-founded by Alexander Groth, Florian Hager, and Daniel Diepold. All of them were at some certain point at Start Global. So it's also like a spin-off at some certain point of Start Global Team. So Daniel Diepold is as well the founder.
Because in the program you don't ask for anything in return to the startup.
No. We do not know. We are equity free. We are philanthropic completely. And with that said, it's also like a little bit difficult to touch on this accelerator definition, right? I mean, what is an accelerator at the end of the day? You accelerate a startup and you take equity. So if you look with the startup perspective, it's also an investor at some certain point. We know the industry standard deal, 7% equity for 100K, Y Combinator is doing it for 150K USD. Like, at some certain point, we are unique with that placing. And then touching a little bit on the Swiss entrepreneurs again, I think we saw that with the foundation of Botnar and the global perspective we want to pursue, it's also a trend that is coming then to Switzerland, right? So Switzerland since 12 years, top 1 nation in innovation. If you measure that, just innovation, right? And what does that mean for the startup ecosystem? Nothing until since around 5 to 7 years we're quite strong as well here. And I would say now in the top 5 of the European ecosystem. I mean, you have Helsinki, for example. You have the Slush in Helsinki. You have Tel Aviv as one of the food tech leading, but as well tech side leading hubs, etc., etc. And Switzerland was coming then up, and now we have really a lot of spin-offs coming from ETH of Zurich, as well the EPFL in Lausanne, and with Munich as AI hub in Europe, as well as some certain point like St. Gallen in the middle. So that's why now we are launching in 2025 our own Start Accelerator, which will be a spin-off, if you want so, of Start Global under a new foundation. So Start Global is the association, and now we're creating a second foundation, a rainy day foundation, by building a Start Accelerator, by building a Start Campus, which is a 7-floor building, 220 people working there.
So that's in 2025. So
it's in the Start Accelerator 2025, but the next fellowship batch, fellowship batch, will move into the Start Campus. So that's the good thing out there, that as well Latin American entrepreneurs and now in the geographical scope as well, African entrepreneurs can join Start Fellowship and get incubated, accelerated in Switzerland in our own Start Campus.
Okay, so I understand now a bit more why you, as a Swiss, want to go and reach out for entrepreneurs in other parts of the world, because there's not enough innovation happening at home or even in the neighboring countries. You need to really grow and find somewhere else. But now, what I want to understand is the other way around. Why would a Latin American founder, if they're in Argentina, Colombia, Peru, why would they not build their company locally and grow regionally? Why would they, because they're students at the end of the day, why would they start at Start Global instead of starting at home?
I mean, it really depends on the geographical focus, right? We all know Brazil is their own bubble. If there's a saying, and I'm confronted with that every day: no Spanish, no business, right? So it's quite simple, right? But the English trend is coming in. We see that 5 times more capital is coming from the US instead of Europe, measuring here the whole investor landscape. And if you compare that at the end of the day, it's quite simple as well. Europe wants to invest. So looking at the trend, what is coming from Europe and as well from external phase, it's the European Commission is launching its own extra in the Caribbean, Mexico and Brazil at the moment. Our missions from the federal councils are going to Brazil to visit them for 1 week. But the thing is, now touching on Argentina, for example, you have a lot of investments going to the biotech cluster. I mean, you have GridX as a company builder there. We had 2 fellows of them this year, and they have a high valuation at the end of the day. And we all know a 10K ticket in Argentina is quite high at the moment. But 500K ticket to do a validation as a first step into a product market fit is as well a lot of money, but someone needs to bring this money to the table, right? So comparing the biotech cluster, I mean, climate tech, clean tech, mining in Chile, you have a lot of corporate innovation calls, open innovation calls, corporate innovation from Switzerland, from the DACH region is coming in, and they want to incubate as well startups and innovation labs. So all of these trends in both ecosystems have this European relation in the money, but as well on the corporate side to have this solution somewhere, right? So the trend is coming. Peru is a little bit different. Peru has a lack of mindset, I think. I mean, you love to think, hey, what is happening in Arequipa, what is in Piura, what is in Cusco, Machu Picchu. We all know of all of these histories, right? But the thing is, you lack to think globally. That's the mindset we want to bring as a Swiss organization, right? So our vision is to create opportunities for young entrepreneurs from low and middle income countries to become global change makers. And this change maker is quite essential. What is a change maker for us? It's quite simple to understand. It's being a visionary and being a leader for the ecosystem. And this leading by example is not something that just should happen in Peru, but it should happen globally. And it begins with yourself at the end of the day. And if you see that Switzerland has a lot of money, we are quite stable, I agree on these points, but as well, we are lacking of innovation at some certain point. That's why we want to soft land in Chile, for example, with all of the corporates, right? So if we have Peruvian startups joining us and we can educate them until a pre-seed investment, they get funding, they get it as well accepted in the ecosystems. And here a really nice example from Mateo Bolivar from Colombia. He was going back after the batch 2 to Colombia and was doing a little info event about Start Fellowship. And we all expect maybe 50, 100 people joining us, but the audience was full. I have no clue how many people joined us, but around 200 young students more, right? And these people inspire the young students at the universities. And now as well, the figure, you have Universidad de Sao Paulo with 90K students. 90K students is a lot, right? And like having these inspiring moments with our alumni, and simply it's just creating community at the end of the day. It's not about the investment, it's about the community. We can inspire these people. And inspiring these people is really essential for the mindset of Peruvians at the end to have this not lack anymore, but create these role models. And with that said, it's also this European connection at some point given, right? And then I think what is quite essential as well to mention at the end of the day is Colombia, for example. I mean, you have Rappi, you have the Rappi Mafia, you have now Pigma, you have vertical partners, like all of these people, we know them in Medellin and Bogota. But it's also about, hey, how do you go about the other countries? I have sometimes a little bit the feeling that Colombia wants to be in their bubble, they want to do their stuff at the end of the day, and incubate and also fundraise into fund these new ventures, right? And then Mexico, it's just connected to the US at the end of the day. It's a soft landing for the US market or the Mexican market to go to the US. And now there's a new bubble created. I mean, Miami has a lot of Latin American people coming. And we are looking as well into Miami at the moment to look a little bit further how we can expand as well here, right? And now I talked about a lot of this ecosystem understanding, etc. But we also need to find a solution for that, right? So we see the problems, and that's where the Start Network is coming in. So Start Global has in Europe 13 locations under the Start brand.
Okay.
Going from Start Helsinki down to Start Lisbon in the western part, and the eastern part in Poland, Start Warsaw. So with these chapters, we are able to incubate, accelerate programs in-house in the local hubs, run by students, managed by students. So that's why we have 750 students at some certain extent working for us. St. Gallen is like the headquarter, if you want so.
Yeah.
So it's not Start St. Gallen, it's Start Global. It would sound a little bit awkward in English, Start St. Gallen. But with that said, now we are soft landing into the Latin American market. So beginning by December this year, legally founded, Start Lima, Start Quito, and Start Bogota.
When you mean legally founded, you're gonna like start a company in each of these countries?
It's an association. It's an association at the end of the day. It depends a little bit on the legal structure, right?
And also run by students from each of those countries.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the basic idea. And I mean, at the end of the day, it's really in Peru, for example, this lack of mindset, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you have two active venture capitalist funds. You have Gapu Ventures and Salcantay.
Yeah.
And you do not have any other active funds. Yeah, there's a...
I'm trying to change that, you know. I'm trying to change that. It's hard to raise money.
but these are the little things, right, that are missing. This role models as well here. And that's why you need to bring all of the people to one table. Yeah. And with that said, we have this operational team of around...
And I would say like changing mindsets and all that stuff, I don't think funds do that job very well. I don't know if it's their job to do it either. I think that organizations like yourselves, those have way more impact. And you're starting at a younger age, changing mindsets in the thousands, while funds can like reach out to smaller groups of entrepreneurs. They have, their job is just finding companies. If it was about, you know, preaching and helping, they try to do it, but they won't have the same impact, you know. So that's why I find it what you're doing is great, because this is actually what's lacking. And the lack of global mindset, that's one of the things that it's a recurring topic when we're talking to entrepreneurs, because they're like thinking about doing a product that fixes something from their day-to-day, and they're thinking after Lima I'll grow to some other city in the country, and that's it. While I challenge them to think, why do you even have to start it in Lima? Like if it's already a software, it's a solution, can you just sell it to the US market, to European market? Which one's going to be better? Because Peru, I don't know if it's that amazing economy to actually reach the milestones you need to attract investors. It's a nice place to hire people because they're very talented. It's a nice place to live, to have the headquarters maybe, but your customers don't need to be Peruvian companies, Peruvian people. It can be the whole world. So yeah, I support your mission on changing the mindset, and let me see what I can do to help. So I want to go back to, you know, why someone who is still studying, because that's, you have to be still studying in the university to be part of the fellow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So why would you sort of, do you have to take a break of studying that semester, or not necessary?
Not necessarily, because
because parents are gonna flip out if they're like, oh yeah, you just skip one semester, you know.
I mean, we know the Teal Fellowship, for example. The Teal Fellowship supports such guys, right?
That's the other way around. It's like, ditch university. You know, here's $100K, go build something. You know.
And for us to really do it the other way around. So we want to educate the people, right? As said, we are a business unit, and that's quite interesting here. We accelerate the startups for 4 months in Switzerland.
Okay.
That means we search mostly tech talents, because we as a business unit can bring in the knowledge, right? And we will touch on that later, how we bring in this knowledge as well. But the question is quite simple. So we want to have people that are under 25 years old having a first idea and coming to us, reaching out to us. Mostly we'll refer them to the local incubators, touching here at UTech Ventures, for example, the Cuba House, working perfectly, really. And the thing is now, they come to us and say, hey, I want to have a European connection. I want to go to Switzerland at some certain point to have this mindset, right? So why Switzerland in that sense? It's quite simple. We are student run and we can create a community of change makers. And with that said, Start Global gives as well this value add to the people during this day to connect them with European, Latin American, but as well US based funds at the end of the day. So we cover all expenses. That means we provide them with a scholarship worth $25,000. The first feet that you take in the plane until you go back to Latin America is covered by us.
Okay.
We give away 2.5k equity for your grants to start with. Besides that, as well in investment committee sessions, monthly organized, as well experts joining us. 30k USD as well for the startups, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only about the money at the end of the day, it's about the scope and the money that you need to be successfully working in Europe. And I think one main aspect that you brought up before is like a SaaS product, right? So we had this year a Peruvian company, Bloom. It's also coming out from UTech. It's like two tech guys, and I remember when they came to Switzerland, it was like really feeling sad for them because like first of all, it was so cold outside, and they coming from the summer here in Lima. They missed fish, for example, ceviche, for example. So all of these little things coming together, and they struggle a little bit to understand, hey, what is fundraising? What is a pitch deck? How to build a pitch deck? How to make it happen as well in English, for example. I mean, global communication at some certain point is not Spanish anymore, hopefully in Latin America, but as well English. So taking all of these examples together, they came here with a robot. They had no clue how to sell that, right? So we helped them now to find the right partners to validate that. And now the Navy in Peru is calling them every day and asking, hey guys, what are you building next, right? So it's like these little success stories. Yeah, there were highs and ups, obviously, downs and ups. Sorry, but I think at the end of the day, we accelerated them to be the best version of themselves.
So
right?
so that's I think what I would have expected. You know, you're going a period of time not to stay in Europe necessarily, but more to pick the bug. You know, like get all this inspiration, change mindset. I always share that I had my moment where I had this pivot moment back when I finished university. So usually, you know, you wouldn't do what you are doing right now. Back in 2009, when I finished university, there was nothing like that in the ecosystem, and I got a grant. I went to a program at Stanford. It was a week long, you know, for Latin American entrepreneurs, and it was run by Latin American students from Stanford. You know, so it's very similar. And that week was arranged so you would get lessons from you Stanford professors, students, investors, entrepreneur. You would visit startup headquarters. You would work with your teams on doing sort of like a startup idea and pitching it the last day to real investors and getting feedback. That really changed my mindset, like completely, because even though the university did the best in those 5 years to teach you on being on, you know, business person, they didn't really bring you this chip of you can really build a company that works everywhere in the world, or it can be software, you can bootstrap it, you can raise funding. It was just amazing to see what was happening in Silicon Valley, and that really changed the path that I went to. And I think that this is happening also to people that go through the Start Fellowship. It's things that you would never know existed until you went through this program. So I like it, and it doesn't mean that you'll stay in Europe. It means that you'll come back to your country and you'll have a different way of thinking. And now I see, and something that I suggest you definitely have to do is those local chapters. You know, because what happened to me is that I came back from Stanford and there was no one else to talk to.
Yeah.
Nobody shared the same vision. Yeah. This weird guy in 2010 talking about, you know, doing startups and technology and raising money, and it's okay if you're like not selling the first day, but you're building your doing an MVP and stuff like that, iterating. That was something that it was frowned upon back then. Now it's changed, but having those your peers pushing you will help you not lose over time that mindset of thinking globally. So I enjoy that. So just, to recap and understand, so how many of the fellows that go stay there, or is it mandatory they have to go back and finish their degrees?
I mean, at the end of the day, these are active students, right?
Yeah.
And they are doing 8 ECTS credits, so Bologna credits at our university.
Okay.
We give them, and the parents are not worrying.
Okay, so they're studying while they're over there.
Yeah,
so.
they're studying.
Yeah.
But our accelerator focus on 3 things. First is content. So content through mentorship, coaching, founder stories, fuck-up stories,
Cool.
whatever you need to understand what early stage knowledge as a startup founder you have, right? Second is network, and here your answer is quite simple. If you network, meaning target markets, target audiences in Europe, obviously we accelerate as well a startup and support it in an individual way to stay in Madrid, to stay in Helsinki, to stay in Poland, wherever at the end of the day, because we have this network in Europe, right? And the third point is fundraising. And fundraising is more even going either to the US, to Latin America, but as well Europe. And here it's quite simple to understand what does the startup need at the end of the day. We have a lot of people coming to us, I would say 87% of the companies that are bootstrapping. So these are not hyper growth, scalable business units to a Series A, Series B, Series C stage, right? And after that, just turning into a growth startup if you want so. But they're already growth before they even began. So simply explaining that, fundraising is quite simple for us. So we organize one demo day on and offline together. This year it was at Zurich at the Google offices. A lot of funds participated from Europe, but as well in Latin America. And we merge already through the content, so through the mentorship side, Series B plus founders with the startup founders, but as well angel investors.
Okay.
So we sell as a value proposition throughout the whole interview process already. Hey, you can actively participate. And taking the example, maybe you, James, you're an angel investor, you can already be part of our interview cycle, and you can say, hey Max, this startup, and this startup, I like them really much. I would suggest them for the accelerator. So they get after that to the next interview cycle. If we approve it again, maybe they get into the pool, right? And after that, we look that we merge them as well with you, that you can create your own investment thesis at some certain point, right? So there are a lot of individual factors coming in throughout these 3 focus areas. The trend is a little bit more into the European market looking. So we had in the first batch, no one staying. We had in the second batch 2 people incorporating in Switzerland and Germany, Agritech and Aquatech. So as well, like 2 startups really specifically in one industry. We had now 5 startup founders stay, so in Madrid, but as well in Zurich, and some of them as well in Berlin. So it's a little bit like we know how to also build the cases now, right? And I see the trend this year going up. So
that's amazing.
Connecting and answering your question.
So I have another challenging question. So we see like all these stories about young entrepreneurs, successful companies, but then when you look at the data, most of the successful companies are for people that are from 40, 45 years old, because they already amassed a certain amount of knowledge of their industry. They failed several times, and now they're on the 3rd or 4th, and now they're successful. How's the ratio been so far for the students? I mean, they're still in the university. They have a lot to learn. What are the chances that what they're doing is going to be successful at such a young age?
I mean, it's all about starting up, right? So I'm touching here on one example of Satellites on Fire. So it was a architect startup out of Argentina, and they were protecting the society of wildfires. So they were dedicating through a satellite system in early stage already, hey, where a wildfire could happen and where not. So they were screening a lot of surfaces. And the thing was, this guy was 19 now, and they started when they were 16.
Wow.
And they were incubated by UDESA, Universidad de San Andrés in Argentina, by Alejandro Machad, who is an advisory board member of ours. So we teach them as well, like at the incubation level, hey, how to accelerate and go about young people, right? So we minimize as well the risk rate to fail at some certain point. But as well here, it's all about trial and error. I mean, the thing is, we already give a first try, a first shot, and we give the infrastructure that they can fail. They can pivot, they can merge. And we had 2 cases this year. So we started with 24 startups this batch, and we ended with 22. Why that? Because 2 of them merged. We had 2 esports company, Colombia and Mexico, merging. They are now securing today $2 million USD seed stage round, which is great. On the other side, we are having now as well another company, EdTech, and a sex tech company from Argentina, Chile. So historically not the best fit.
Okay, that's one of my.
Merging, right?
I'm mentor on that one.
Yeah. And that's the cool story, right?
Yeah, I don't know why I was assigned that one, but it ended up being pretty awesome. So yeah.
I mean, this is why we have you here, right? So, I mean, it's all about this trial and error, and I would say it's not about that we want to raise money with the startups, right? For us, it's not about the KPI of, hey, I raised now 4 million USD. We did nice. It's all about, hey, how can we create the individual path that Jamie's not coming back in 2010 and asking, hey, where are my sparring partners? Where are my comrades to start their own company? So nice example as well here, Thomas Saad. He made an exit with Coco, the startup. He went to Switzerland, 1.3 million USD last year. Now he's in Platanus with another fellow, so they merged again, and they are now launching a new venture, so-called WizzyBot, to also hopefully then raise at the demo days in October at Platanus. So it's a little bit like all of this community feeling, and it's really what I as well receive as number 1 feedback. It's community.
Yeah.
I learned the most from... You need that, and I think community is also including mentors and not just the people around that are working on a startup, but it's a team, it's a mentorship experience, it's Start Global, it's the ecosystem. And I think summing that up, it's not about like Swiss people, like if I'm coming to Lima and I'm not speaking Spanish, most of the people think, what is this white guy doing here, right? Very conservative, but it's not all about that. The startup ecosystem in Switzerland is the same shoes, it's the same players everywhere. At the end of the day, you have local funds, you have bigger funds, you have Sequoia, you have Andreessen Horowitz, Pipapo, and you have Y Combinator, you have Techstars everywhere. But we also created the success stories. So we brought 1 to Y Combinator, we brought 6 now to Techstars. So we know how to also individually support them to top tier accelerators at the end of the day. But now, really interesting for us, I would say in the next coming 3 years are the incubators. Since we are launching as well this year the first incubator under the brand of Incubator, and we teach them as well how to do it. So I visited yesterday a public university in Lima, and what I saw was really like they have an innovation lab, they know approximately how to do it, right? But the English was lacking, so we need to educate already the people.
That's a big issue.
And that's a really big issue. So that's why we keep up talks with the political, governmental side as well, and launched last year a youth entrepreneurship project. We validate that, or are validating that in Sao Paulo at the moment, to teach business English and to give already first shot into the direction of an incubator, right? So it's a pre-incubator if you want, so already starting with selling a lollipop at the end of the day. So it's a lemon juice or whatever, right? But what we saw is as well at the age of 7, 8, the bridge between English speaking and Spanish speaking opens up already. And mainly it's about the backgrounds. I mean, there are a lot of different income levels. You know that best, I imagine. And the thing is, like in Switzerland, we are not really confronted by that. So not a lot of people know that we have 10% poverty rate in Switzerland.
Oh, wow.
But we have no homeless people.
Yeah.
Why that? Because the state has the time to think about, hey, where do I put these homeless people, right? And this is a prime example what is a little bit the difference between Latin America and Europe at the end of the day. I mean, we all know innovations and we know inventions, right? These are two things that are existing in the startup ecosystem. Innovations are created if you have time to think about things, right? I mean, strategic level, pipapo, we know how to do it, right? And in Latin America, you have a lot of inventions because you have so limited resources to think about things already, but as well to invest time and as well financial resources into it, right? So I think the main argument here is as well, we want to give them infrastructure to think about innovation, and then if they're coming back and failing again, but they were at start fellowship, they have this mindset, and hopefully in 5 years we can have our KPI to create 4,000 jobs back in Latin America for people. And this is what we care about. At the end of the day, it's more about the society, about the community, rather than investments. Yes,
that's amazing. Now, there's a lot of information that you've given us throughout this episode. Where would be the best place to go and find out all this information, and which one is more specific to their current situation?
I mean, it's my head, I would say. But no. We have a website. So you find the website under Start Global, startglobal.org. Or you just simply search for Start Fellowship, and you find all information about the incubator, about the accelerator, about me, about our episode as well at some certain point. So it will be as well in our media page. But it's all about that. I mean, Instagram channel as well. It's Start Global. We are having not a TikTok yet. Hopefully it's coming at some certain point.
You're gonna be dancing there to promote entrepreneurship.
No, completely. And as well, one big shout out to our marketing team. They are doing great videos. So that means YouTube is as well one key element here. But I think as well, subscribe to the newsletter. We have a monthly newsletter with most important information. And it's not long. It's really simple to understand, simple to see, and that's perfect. But I think, James, they should just listen to that episode.
Yeah, they should re-listen it several times because it has a lot of valuable information. But now if you go to startglobal.org, then they can go and specifically find when is like the next batch of program and so on. So we've already covered that part. Now I want to go to the most important part. What about this?
It's a Swiss knife.
It's a Swiss knife. Do you guys know about Swiss knives? Yes, of course we know about Swiss knives, but tell me a little bit about the why is it a tradition to give it as a gift when you visit?
Yeah. I mean, Switzerland is quite well known for chocolate, cheese. Yes. I mean, you know us as well, maybe for skiing and stuff like that. But most of them, I think Victorinox is quite well known here as well in Miraflores and or San Isidro. You have some shops, and I mean, it's just a tradition that you can
I love
use. It's a really simple thing, and it stays long at your side. I mean, it's
my father has one that I remember since I was very young, and I was always asking for him to borrow it, and then I think I got one when I was young, but I haven't seen one in years, so it's nice to now have one of the most savvy things that you can have. I hope you didn't bring it in your carry-on, because
but funny story here, in the last team we had some people taking this into the hand luggage, the thing was they brought it to the US, and that's the funny thing. So they landed, or they went from Zurich to Quito, right?
Yeah.
And they went from Zurich to London with just 3 knives. So 7 got away, they were rejected to take. In London to Boston, they had 2 missing after that. And then, to Denver, I think they had just 1. And then they flew from Denver to Quito, something like that. Yeah. And they ended up after 4 flights with nothing. But they started with 10. So it's a little bit fun story here. But it gives a good reflection as well, what are students at the end of the day. So we need as well to learn first how to set it up, how to be professional. And now we brought all of the Swiss knives to Latin America. That's great.
That's amazing, yeah. And well, this is also very traditional over there, or
it is. I mean, we are, or me at least, I'm not using the notebook that much, but most of the people love it. Yeah. So it's as well a good size, I would say, to write all of your notes down. It's branded. I think this is the most essential part for us to create this fear of missing out.
Yes.
And besides that, I mean,
you don't have. I do. You don't have. Yeah. What can I say? Danke. Thank you.
That's right.
And you're giving me also a lot of homework, so I have a lot of reading to do afterwards. But it'll give me enough content for writing stuff. But joking aside, now I want to go to this last part of the episode where you share recommendations to entrepreneurs. One, for example, is what movies, TV series, books inspired you that you think that every entrepreneur in the world should watch or read.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I'm not a big fan of Netflix and co. So I suggest podcasts maybe. Because I'm really a big fan of podcasts.
Podcasts are amazing. You should listen more to podcasts.
Yeah. We had him as a speaker last year, Harry Stebbings.
20VC. That's. I usually listen to 2-3 podcasts recurring, and that's one of the ones that I don't miss.
It's really great. And now Latin American Spirit is coming in. Gina Gotthill was part of it. No, besides that, I listened to a Swiss podcast. It's like It was the first sex tech founder in Switzerland, but it's in Swiss German. He's called Alan Frey. He gives a good advice, so maybe call to action to learn Swiss German. No, it's really great. Books at the end of the day really all about startup ecosystem, all about mindset. I mean, we all know Simon Sinek, great guy, has a lot of good books. At the end of the day, I must say I have this. Not hidden things, because I just got recommended. So we have internally a podcast, book recommendation in our pool. I listen to a lot of. I'm not watching TikToks, but I'm looking at some Start Summit after action reels. No, besides that, I really think that as well, Y Combinator has a super startup school, for example. Now the podcast that they are doing since several years, several months, is really great content. What we also have is B2 Ventures startup knowledge. It's like a Notion page where you have the basic startup knowledge that you need at the end of the day. And every founder makes the mistakes to save own private Notion page, all the key learnings out there, they want to put it in their own space, right? The thing is, B2 Venture has a really good one. I will share it after that with you. So you can put it into the caption. But it's for me, really essential as well to mention, hey, Notion is as well already existing at some certain point with the startup knowledge. Why do you need a new one, right? So use the old content that people are already creating and also doing. Use that as a FOMO, and also ask them directly, hey, where is your content saved at some certain point? And they are super happy to share it. I did that several times with founders, and I love it. At the end of the day, it's also about trial and error, right? Recommendations, content is just created through learning, through experience as well. Here at some certain point, mentorship is quite essential. So, that's why you're a mentor of our fellows, summing that up. But I think as well on a private scale, I'm just 21, so I'm quite reflected, I would say. But I also work with a lot of mentors on my own, not a lot in the quantity, but in the quality way. Meaning as well, I reflect on a lot of stuff. And I think this is key. Use your brain and don't use all the time what other people are saying. So you also need to make your own experiences. That's summing it up from my side so far about your question.
Perfect. I don't know if that's going to be the same answer to the question I was going to close with, but I always do this question at the end of every episode. It is, if you would have a time machine that would send a message to your version of 10 years ago, now knowing that you're quite young, but still, let's see, what would you advise your version that was in school, middle school?
Middle school at the age of 11. I was a soccer goalkeeper at this time. I was pursuing or hoping for a football career, but my talent got hidden at some certain point. I'm now a referee between, so it's a little.
Is that your hobby?
Yeah, it's my hobby. I'm hopefully getting into the FIFA ref pool at some certain point in 10 years, but let's see. On the other side,
you're doing it only to get free tickets to the World Cup, right?
Yeah. Okay. I mean
that makes sense.
That's why I love Mexico, for example.
Yeah.
And I should love Argentina at the moment. So it's no, but maybe touching on the last one. I think focus. It's just focus. Specific things are really just happening because you can focus and you have time to do it quite well. That's my only advice. I think my experience is quite clear with that. So I'm a football referee. I had my own startup, so we shut down 2 months ago. And now I'm managing director of Start Fellowship. So at some certain point, you also need to pursue your career as a student.
And what are you studying again?
International affairs. It's like international relations. Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
International affairs. Okay.
I'm not becoming an ambassador, no worse, but I want to be.
But
an
you're
entrepreneur.
sort of doing it right now. You're becoming the ambassador of Start Global and Start Fellowship. So you're putting in practice. So this is a shout out to your parents. He's doing what he's studying. So cut him some slack.
Yeah. That's great. Thanks, Jim, for this compliment towards my parents. I mean, at the end of the day, it's really about having time as well for yourself, for your personal experience as well, and here including family, friends, and fools, we would say in the startup scene. But I think it's quite essential that you have that on your side as well. And I mean, working a week, 80 hours, 90 hours, something is happening, but I think you just need to focus at some certain point and say, hey, 9 to 5, and it's also good at some certain point. And besides that, do what you can do best, and focus is here the thing to do, to learn, and that's what I would advise my soccer goalkeeper then to just focus on football and not on different sports at this certain level.
That's perfect, because focus is one of the things that is really hard. It's easy to say, very hard to do, because then you're like you get FOMO. Like you don't want to, there's stuff that you think you should be doing, and then you don't want to not do it because you fear that you're missing out on something or so. But focus is definitely one of the aspects I've seen founders, especially successful founders, do very well. And that you can see that in their company. They will say no to a lot of things. Sometimes you think that's kind of rude, but at the end of the day, it's because they're prioritizing what they think matters the most.
Yeah. I mean, it's always what we see in pitching competitions, for example, right? And I mean, you have so many startups. They want to change the world. They want to do that diverse scope. They should do that and that and that. And I think it's good advice. And you are a little bit older, so you should know better than
I felt a lot, so I know what I've had my unfocused moments, and even now, like you would say, so Jaime, what do you do? Well, I'll do a podcast. I'm raising a venture fund. I am executive director of an association, and I don't know, a husband. It's like, but I'm trying, even though in those things, to be really focused on doing very specific things and not try to go overboard, because then it doesn't work. And having focus doesn't mean that you're like shooting small. I think it's having a huge mindset. Because you want to transform the world, it's perfect. But focus means just doing right now what is important to achieve that bigger goal. So I like what you guys are doing about having big mindset, like global mindset. But then when you start doing things, you have to think, okay, what are those really small tasks I have to do perfectly or great to get to the next stage, and then all those different steps will get me to become really global. So start thinking global, but you have to really focus on very specific tasks.
And step by step, that's the thing. And after that, you hopefully achieve at some certain point as well here to have the next podcast at some certain point. And as well, I hope that the listeners get it as well. And no, thanks, Jim, for having me. Was really enjoyable. Me llamo Max and soy de la Suiza. That's the only thing I can tell in Spanish, but it's advancing. So it's okay.
Thanks, Max, for dropping by. I know you have still other things to do here in Lima, but thanks for coming here and share a bit about what you guys are doing. And entrepreneurs, like, take this opportunity, because early in your life you have less risks to take. There's if you decide to do these things and you don't have so many things that pull you back on staying home or doing stuff. Right now you can really take those risks, go study abroad, start a company. It all just will make you a stronger individual, and if everything works out, you have an amazing startup that does an IPO, becomes a unicorn, and so on. Okay, well, thanks, Max.
Thanks
for coming.
Thanks. Ciao.
Hola querida comunidad de innovadores, espero que hayan disfrutado mucho del episodio. Como saben, todos los viernes publicamos con mucha alegría un nuevo episodio para ustedes. Y para continuar mejorando el programa, nos encantaría conocer más sobre ustedes. Los invito a escribirme a mi correo electrónico hola@jaimesotomayor.com o en mis redes sociales para que me cuenten qué les parecen los invitados y temas y cómo este programa los está ayudando en su objetivo de crear el próximo unicornio de la TAM. Finalmente, les agradecería enormemente si pueden compartir este podcast con amigos y familiares que estén interesados en estos temas, como también a calificar con 5 estrellas este podcast en Spotify o Apple Podcast. Así más personas nos podrán encontrar. Muchas gracias por escuchar Innovación sin Barreras Podcast y hasta un próximo episodio.